Hey, welcome to Yogi's Garage. I know it's been a couple of weeks since I dropped my last video, but I'm back with Project Gunther. As you know, somebody put nuts and bolts in this thing, and I had to get a donor engine and swap out all the accessories and parts and get that engine back into that wagon so I can get the spot back, because my wife, Yogi Mama, is really on my case. So, she's on camera. So, if this is your first time visiting Yogi's Garage, welcome. You're in for a treat. We here at Yogi's Garage are straight up amateurs doing this work in a home garage. I started this channel back when the pandemic was in full force. I needed something to do, and I started with rebuilding an Audi. I've rebuilt the Audi. I've moved on to a Porsche 911, which is what you see here on the table, that we're waiting on parts like everybody else on this planet. So I had another project, a Wagon, that I thought was drivable, ended up having a blown engine because of nuts and bolts. That's what this one is. I have the other one ready to go back into the engine bay. So that's what this video is all about, is getting the engine finished up, stuffed back into the car, and then we can start it up. But not in this video. We'll start it up in a future video. So with that said, let's look over some of the parts that I'm going to be putting and replacing in Gunther. This little packet here was included in the cylinder head rebuild kit, and it includes the intake manifold gaskets. Valve cover gasket is always important. This is a while you're in there moment. You got to change out the rear main seal. A couple of the idler pulleys needed to be replaced. One was frozen solid and the other one just because. As you can tell, I'm replacing wear items. So this thermostat is a no duh moment here. You got to replace that, as well as the belt. But this belt is a 93 centimeter belt so that I can remove the smog pump. This is the riser on the throttle body that needed to be replaced. This is the flex disc that attaches the transmission to the drive shaft. And last but not least, motor mounts that I decided not to use. What I have here are two injectors, one from the donor engine and one from Gunther. There's some subtle differences here. The nozzles are a different shape. One's bigger. The Gunther injector appears to be bigger, and this one here has a much narrower taper, for a lack of a better word. So why is this important? Well, I'm thinking about using Gunther's injectors. They just appear to be in much better condition. The O-rings are healthier, something that I could reuse. The ones on the donor engine, the O-rings here, you can see they're just kind of giving out. So the only issue is that we need to see if either one can work on the intake manifold that the donor engine came with. All right, so what you see here is the business end of the intake manifold, and each hole you see here is where an injector should go. So I'm going to try to use the Gunther injector in here and see if I get a good fit. Ooh. I do. That's great news. It's a solid fit, beautiful. And the reason how I know this is the donor intake manifold that goes to the engine is because this particular one, I don't believe, is from a Mercedes E320. I think it's from a different model. In other words, it doesn't exist on the Gunther engine here, which is, anyway, I got stuff everywhere, so everything's where it should be. All right, so yes, moving forward, I'm going to go with the Gunther injectors. Okay, man, I could have said that in like 5 seconds. All right, I've got my portable workbench here. It's time to clean the fuel injectors, and I think I have a plan of action here. I picked up this real cheap do-it-yourself kit. It's basically made of a 3D printed part here, as well as some DC cables, positive, negative, as well as an adapter that should fit most modern fuel injectors. So it's pretty straightforward. What you do is you'll stick the fuel injector with the O-ring on there into the adapter that fits. I like to do it like that. And I kind of use it like that, like a little holder. And then I'll insert the cable, get it lined up. And the idea is to take this and to push down on this while you're providing power to the injector. And it's going to be real quick, because otherwise this thing is just going to burst with fluid because it's so much pressure. So you just want to activate your injector, push down, get a nice stream of fluid. And then in this case, I'm using brake cleaner. Boom, the injector should be clean, should have a nice steady stream, and you move on to the next one. It's pretty quick. So check this out. I'm gonna move that right there to give me a little bit more room and give me a little bit more area to work with, and I don't get it. Oh, and I like to wrap the can with a towel or something so that you're not getting brake fluid all over yourself. Again, this is not ideal. This is for, you know, daily driver cars. If you have a high performance car like a Porsche, you need to have them professionally rebuilt with a pre and post results on how much volume it's pushing through. This is really good for just, you know, old timer cars, and you don't want to spend $90 on cleaning injectors, okay? So just keep that in mind. The other end of this thing has a hole in it, and that goes on top of a spray can that has the sprayer head removed, all right? So I'm gonna put that right there. I'm just gonna wrap it. I'm not gonna press anything just yet because I wanna get power to it first. And by using your finger, you should be able to hold it in place long enough to spray it. So here we go. So I'm gonna just test it. You can hear it. And then power, like that. And see, it quickly just pops right off, which is fine, but you saw the injector spray out. All right, let's check out the results in slow motion. And again, this is a quick fix. It's not ideal. There's better solutions out there, but I think I paid like 20 bucks for this, so it's not bad for what you get. Maybe even less, maybe like 15, I don't remember, it was a year ago. So yeah, I've got about 5 more to do. Let me knock this out, and I'll get back to you. And the good thing is about, the only really good thing about that thing spraying out on you is that you get a nice wet towel filled with brake cleaner to just use to wipe down your injectors. Got to find the positives in life, man. That's what I try to tell my kids every day. Given the current climate of our country and the way things are going, it's the little things that make us happy, isn't it? Whoop, another one. Let's get them clean. And like I said, I'm going to keep using the O-rings on this thing. I think they're fine. They look nice and meaty and flexible. I think these injectors have been rebuilt probably in the 21st century, I hope. Okay, so once you figure out the orientation of where they should go, the way I saw, I just put it on the engine to see how it goes on. But the tab here on the injector should point towards the flat side of the fuel rail. All right, just like that. The trick is to get the retaining clip on first and then slide it on to the rail. So let me show you. Here's the tab, and you want the tabs here to be facing up towards the connector. So like this. Like that. See how it's set? And then the round curved areas will go around this rail here, the clip rail, and snap right into place. That simple. All right, let me put them all back on there. Ridiculous it took this long. And when I say long, I mean you probably only saw 30 seconds of it, but you know, I had to sleep and drink a beer on it, try to figure it out. It's like, what's going on with these things? I knew I was doing something wrong, but it's just an assembly thing. You can't keep trying to bang your head up against a wall and hoping to get a different result. It just doesn't work that way. So again, one more time, push it on to the injector and then right on to the rail. You want to see what a $3 O-ring looks like? That's maybe a penny's worth of material. This right here, this is about 2 millimeters wide. And I had to go all the way down into one of the oldest Mercedes-Benz dealerships. In fact, the oldest Mercedes-Benz dealership here in Houston, called Star Motors. And they were the only ones that had mechanics and parts guys that were old enough to know how to find this O-ring. It was not easy. But anyway, it goes right there. it barely fits in there. So they recommended, based on, you know, 100 years of combined experience, maybe, to use some Vaseline. And that's exactly what I'm going to do here, is use some Vaseline to make sure that this O-ring stays put, right? A little bit will keep it from falling out. And then at the same time, the Vaseline will just dissolve after a few heat cycles. Yeah, and that holds it. All right, it's time to get this water pump on, finally. Just gonna use that to hold it in place. It makes it easier. 4 13mm bolts. And the other ones are gonna have to be done with a ratchet, it looks like. Hoping I can get my torque wrench in there. We'll see. And then I wanna use something to remind me that I torqued this, so I'm gonna use my own personal nail polish from my collection and just color the bolts to say, yep, these have been torqued. Let's get a new thermostat on here. My package came with 2 O-rings, so score. Maybe that'll make up for the $3 O-ring that I used on the water pump. All right, let me cap that up. If you think the top of this thermostat cover looks pretty new, it's because I used the ultrasonic cleanser on it. What do you think? And then I finished it with an aluminum brightener. I think it looks pretty good. Good. Beautiful. All right, I got the throttle body reconnected, no big deal, 4 bolts. And then this cooler line here, it's got a couple of M8 bolts in there, I think, or maybe even M6 bolts. Not a big deal. Got that in. On the water pump is in. I'm gonna leave the power steering pump out for now because I have to rebuild it, so it's gonna be a little while before I get it. So I'm good on this side, and then I'm gonna come up top and seal the valve cover, and then we should be pretty close to getting this thing back in. Looking forward to it. All right, scratch that. I'm not gonna do anything with the motor mounts. They're in really good shape. There's no reason to replace them, and I'll just return the other ones or sell them outright. All right, so now I'm working on the valve cover, and it's really unfortunate that this valve cover is losing its paint on the inside and on the outside. But particularly on the inside, you can see that the paint is just peeling off. And this is concerning because you don't want this stuff getting in your oil passages, and this sits directly on top of your valve. So I took a wire brush already to it. I'm gonna take a wire brush further and get some of this off because I do not want to be dealing with any type of oil starvation issues. Okay, I'm gonna scrub this up and use my air compressor or my air blower to get some of this off. But again, I don't want this stuff to peel off and get into the engine. All right. Okay, apologies for the noise. I've got the ultrasonic cleaner going over there. I'm using the heck out of that thing, getting all of this oil and power steering fluid off of these parts. All right, right now I'm gonna work on getting the gasket back on the valve cover. This kit came with a couple of new cam caps. I don't think I need them, but I'm gonna hang on to them. Obviously, they're be great in my collection of parts that I'll never use. Start in the corner and just work around. Can't quite understand why Mercedes thought it was a good idea to paint the inside of a valve cover. Looks like a disaster waiting to happen. There we go. I may have been pulling it too tight. There. All right, and then these caps will go back on. All right, let's get it in. All right, I may just narrate over this if this is too annoying. Ultrasonic cleaner is going over there. All right, I've cleaned up the mating surfaces. And as I mentioned earlier, it looks like there was some RTV here and here as well. and here. And, you know, I confirmed that with some old-timer Mercedes mechanics at the local Mercedes dealership and asked them that question. And only the older guys knew about these engines, of course. And they said, yeah, put a little RTV here that helps with the seepage, especially, he said, on the timing cover, a little bit right there on the seams should help keep it from leaking. This is the front. Got a slight concern that the valve cover gasket was going to come off, but no, it's not. All right there. All right, we're going to start from the center and work our way out. Okay, they're all tight now. I'm going to start torquing. Not twerking, but torquing. $14. All right, it's on. I have to get this clutch off this pulley here so I can transfer it over. I need to get my Allen head in there nice and snug. It's an 8mm. All right, nice and snug. All right. That was way easier than I thought it would be. What's up with that? All right, there we go. One clutch. All right, we'll just put this guy right back on. I'll put a little bit of lubricant just to help with everything. There. There you go. Pretty easy. Time to work on the intake manifold, get that all cleaned up. And what's interesting is that this box was sitting right here. And on the snorkel that comes off of the intake or the throttle connects into here, but there's nothing in there. There's no filter. There's nothing. It's just a box. So if you guys know what this does, I'm going to clean it up, obviously, and put it back on and use it. I already bought the new snorkel that will fit here because, you know, the one that came with the donor is broken. But if you guys know what this is and what the point is, let me know. The one that came off Gunther, my Mercedes, didn't have that. Look, it doesn't have that right there as it does here. But nevertheless, I'm going to take this apart a little bit more. I'm going to take off all of these gaskets, and we're going to refresh the whole thing. Like everything else in Yogi's garage, this has got to be clean. So here we go. And there. Not too bad. Pretty straightforward. Just a lot of grime and a little bit of oil buildup here, especially inside of here. I left one of the gaskets off so I can show you how I installed it. Since it's a weird shape, it's probably better to start on one side and work your way up. So what I did is just laid it in the bottom and then walked it up. That way it doesn't get twisted when you're putting it in there. Because you could start here and then it can be off a little bit and then you have to realign it up. So start at the bottom, then work your way up. And there, pretty good. All right, so in preparation for the next step, I need to get the rear main seal housing off of Gunther's old engine. In the process of putting the oil pan on the donor engine, the two long 10mm bolts that go into the rear main seal housing stripped out. Instead of retapping them and having them helicoiled in, I might as well just take this housing off and see if I can just transfer it over. These are 12mm 12-point bolts. Yeah, here it comes. Okay. And those are 10 mils, as are the two on the bottom. Jeez. I mean, these may not have even been tightened down. Jesus. Okay, if you say so. And this is where they stripped out, right underneath here. And I should be able to just pry this thing off. And it looks like RTV is our friend here, folks. There we go. RTV along the bottom a little bit, and then RTV all the way around on the crank seal. Okay, so here is the rear main seal, and then here's the flange off of Gunther, nice and cleaned up. So like I mentioned before, the bead should go from around here, around the inside of each bolt hole, all the way around here, and then on the bottom run a bead, and I believe if you run a bead and then you smear it on this thing, it creates a nice smooth seal. So I'm going to try that and keep my fingers crossed. But first things first is I want to get the rear main seal on. So this is the front of the rear main seal, and this is how you want to get it in there. And you want to get it in there nice and even. And in this case, you know, I don't want to get it all the way in there because there's going to be some fine tuning. I don't want it too far in because that would be a problem. It should just be flush with the lip of this flange seal. All right, so now I'm going to put that bead down here. Just a thin little bead. Okay, here's the flange right here. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and run these bolts in. All right, and there. Torque down, I'm gonna let it cure. We're just about ready. I'm gonna crank the engine over a couple of times just to see how it looks, make sure it's not hung up on anything. I doubt it, but it'll just make me feel better. And then we're gonna get the flywheel on, and then we get the transmission on, and then we stuff it back into Gunther. Let's keep going. That looks, I'm checking out my own videos. See, I actually use them. I eat my own dog food is what they call it in my industry. The next step. All right, so that makes sure I put this thing in the proper orientation, whether it should go like this or like that or like this. Hey, if you don't document, you're not going to know. Oh yeah, just want to put a little bit of silicone lubricant along this lip here that this thing's going to go on, and I want to limit the amount because the sealant is still curing. All right, and it should just go on. And I got my trusty negotiator. All right, there we go. Now then you should have a spacer. It goes on like that. Now here's a Yogi's tech tip. Do not be tempted to reuse your flywheel bolts. These are torque to yield bolts. Basically that means that they stretch, right? So, there are a few of you guys out there that don't know what this means, so bear with me, the guys that know. When you torque to yield, you're actually torquing it. Let's try that again. When you torque to yield, you're actually torquing it twice. You're torquing it by foot-pounds or whatever, and then you're torquing it by degrees of angle. So in this case, I believe this is a 90-degree turn. And what that does is it stretches the bolt out, and that's why you can't reuse them unless they're hardened. These are not. These are OEM bolts. And I'm going to pull this up to the camera, and maybe you can see that the neck area where the thread is at, where the thread is not present, it's a little thinner than the rest of it. Now, technically, there's a bulletin that says that if the diameter of this thing is within a certain tolerance, then you can reuse them. But why, right? Spend the money. This is the area where you actually have to spend the money. And unfortunately, these bolts are not cheap. I think each one was either $4 or $5. But these are the new revision versions of these bolts. Still a one-time use. So I can torque them in there, great. But then after I'm done, I have to stretch them for the permanent position. So don't reuse your bolts on this spot. You can reuse them on like these 10mm ones, but these, not so much. All right, these are T55, these new bolts. And if they needed Loctite, they would have come with Loctite on them. Most of the factory bolts will do that. So I'm just gonna run them in. I already thread chased all of these holes here, so we're good. Just getting them in. Oh, my $5 bolt. Don't go anywhere. Yeah, $5. I had to get them from, where did I get them from? Auto House. AZ. They're the only ones that had it. So thanks, Auto House. Got it on setting 1 just to pop them in. Time to torque these bad boys up, and then we'll torque them to yield. Let's do it. I wasn't recording that whole time. All right. I already started the stretch process on a few of these, and then I'm tagging them with my nail polish. And now I'm going after this one for a 90-degree turn. All right. Here we go. Okay. I'm pulling up. I should actually do it the other way, but that's fine. A bit more. Good. Here we go. Whew. One more. A little bit more on this one. There. All right, we're going to finish this up, and then we'll go on to the next step. Yeah, this is exactly what it is. I had to do the old switcheroo here. The engine that you see there is the one that's going back in the wagon, and the one sitting there on the side is the blown engine that I took out from the wagon. So I'm going to put the blown engine on the engine stand, which I've already taken off, the working engine. Stay with me here. And then slide it over to the corner, out of the way, and then put the good engine on that tire so that I can reposition it for the transmission reinstallation. Did you get all that? Yeah, fun stuff. But it was necessary when you're dealing with a small environment and you have no less than 3 projects going on at the same time. All right, 2 rookie mistakes. All right, I made 2 rookie mistakes. I didn't record the process of getting it over here, and then I just said exactly what I'm about to tell you a moment ago, but I didn't have my mic on, so I got to do it all over. All right, so I moved it over here with the help of my son and my wife. I used a little bit of silicone lubricant, like every good man should have a nice can of, here it is. Like every man should have one of these, some silicone lube, because you never know when you got to get it all slippery. And look at that, you can see the skid mark here. I wanted to push the engine to this point so I could remate it to the transmission, flip this cherry picker around, wham, bam, get it back into the engine bay, and then I can get all my space back. I'm still waiting on parts for my Porsche over there. I have to get new fuel injectors, and getting those injectors right now is almost impossible. They're extremely overpriced, and really nobody has them. They have knockoffs. So this project's not really going anywhere right now, but the next thing will be, of course, to get this engine torn down and see what caused the carnage firsthand. Okay, this here is the flex plate that I pulled out of Gunther, and it's in pretty bad shape. I mean, this is what connects the transmission to the drive shaft, which then connects to the rear differential. And this one here, you can see it's got a pretty sizable tear right there, and tears here as well. So what does that mean? Well, when you want to go fast, the energy is being transferred through this into the differential, and if you have tears in it, I can only imagine that the power is not going 100% to the rear, but rather being wasted on a torn joint. All right, so here is the new one that I bought. And unlike Porsche parts, believe it or not, Mercedes parts in comparison are way cheaper. And this here was probably 25 bucks. This probably would have cost $300 from Porsche. But anyway, this is going to go back in. I've got new hardware for it as well. I got to get the torque specs for that. And we're going to slap that in. And then when we put the transmission back into place, then we bolt in the other half once that's there. So let's go ahead and get this back in. It's hard to believe that I was actually under this car with the jack stands about 2 settings lower. I felt like I was going to be crushed by this thing. So, let's see, this looks right. Okay. Okay. And there. Damn. What the hell is that? I think one of the chains was knotted up. Okay. Thinking like that. It's gonna go right there. All right, I got it pretty close. Like that. All I want to do is just kind of get the bolts to bite, and then we'll get them in. All right, 40 Newton meters on the bell housing. All right, now when you do a crow's foot torque, in order to get a 1-for-1, it has to be at a 90-degree angle to the torque wrench. So like that. If you go up like that, you're extending the length of the torque. This is calibrated for the length of this handle. If you go longer, you're gonna have to adjust. So 90 degrees. And of course, last but not least, we've got to reattach the flywheel to the torque converter. A little bit of color. There's one right there. Getting the engine in. I'm gonna get some help, but I gotta lift this thing up first, so let's do that.
Yeah. There they go. So, dang, Emily.
Flexing.
Woo! Flexing. There we go. Ooh, guns.
That's just about it.
Switch arms.
It's a
I
workout.
think we're clear, honey.
Okay.
We're clear. All right. Let me grab this.
It's just turned into a workout channel.
Who needs a gym when you have an engine?
Uh-huh.
An engine.
An engine.
Okay. And then, go ahead, Em. Push. Yep. We're gonna kick it while you're doing it. Okay, stop for a second. All right, kick your, there you go. All right, make sure it's centered. Does that look centered to you?
Looks good.
Okay. Okay, here we go.
On the other side.
Or you can just do it. Go ahead.
And down.
Okay, clear.
Yeah. Okay.
Woo! That was fast. Oh my God! Look at that clearance. Oh. Okay, y'all need to keep pushing it.
Yep. There we go. Keep going. There we are.
All right. Yeah, go ahead. Nice and slow.
I'm going super slow. There we go.
Here it comes.
Whoa! Okay. Keep going?
Yep, I'm good over here.
Oh, okay. I guess that's supposed to
Stop. Damn, girl. Okay, lower it. Slowly. Keep it going, keep it going. You got it. Okay. Stop right there. You tripping on me. Let's see. All right, this is the end of the video. I hope you guys learned something or at least enjoyed this. It's always fun getting the family involved, getting things like this accomplished. Everybody chipping in and giving me their perspective on how things should go. I love it. That's what it's all about here in Yogi's Garage. So now the engine's back in. Obviously I can't start it. I have a lot of things that I need to reconnect before we even get there. But the good news is it's in. I ran into one problem near the end where it looks like the motor mount on the exhaust side of the engine is not quite lining up with the subframe. So I have to figure out why that is. But you can see that it's in. There's a little bit of weight on this because I'm trying to align that bolt hole, but the other side's threaded in, so we're good here. Everything is where it's supposed to be, I think. So we're good. So I know I said I'd get this done in a couple of weeks, but like everything else in the world, it's crazy. And my life is crazy, just like I'm sure your life is crazy as well. But hey, I got it accomplished. I got the engine in, gonna do some plumbing, get the coolant in, and then we're ready to start the car. So that's what's coming up next. So if you like what you saw, or even if you didn't like what you saw, be sure to leave a thumbs up or thumbs down below. And leave a comment, tell me what you thought. I know it's kind of crazy and amateurish, but hey, this is a home garage and I'm learning every single day, and I hope you did too. So with that, thanks for watching Yogi's Garage. We'll see you next time.
Yo, microphone check, make it a microphone check, give it a mic.